Hey everyone, it is Dr. Nicole Carter with HUES Women's Health Advocacy Institute, and
My name is Lauren Polk. I am a intern here at Hughes.
today we are doing something that we're actually really excited about. We are having a live discussion over The Sugar Jar, the book by Yasmine Cheyenne. And we are doing this as a kickoff of something that we'll more than likely continue to do. But this is part one of our discussion. And um, and so thank you to those who might be joining us today, and all those who will watch it later, because it will be posted on our YouTube as an edited discussion. Right now, we're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and it also will be put on our website as well. So this discussion is what we're calling, it's a series called Well Read. And we actually are curating a discussion guide to go along with the book that officially tomorrow you will be able to download and answer questions yourself and follow along, and take notes in the discussion guide. If you have the capacity to do that, you can print it out as well, to do that. And we even have songs to go along with each chapter. And if you like essential oils or candles, we got scents to go along with each chapter as well. Things that you should kind of look at or listen to, I mean, smell or and listen to while you're reading the chapter. So, a little bit about the Well Read Project. So, the Well Read Project is an innovative initiative launched by Hughes Women's Health Advocacy Institute that aims to promote health literacy, equity, and justice among women of color. This project seeks to bridge the gap between health and wellness texts and the lived experiences of women by placing the latter in conversation with the former. By doing this, the Well Read Project aims to create a space where women of color can engage with and critically analyze health and wellness information in a way that is relatable and relevant to their own lives. So today, again, we are going through the book by Yasmine, and she is a writer and speaker and self healing advocate, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. She helps people create and strengthen their individual self care practices by teaching them the tools that empower lasting positive change in their lives. She is an Air Force veteran who now focuses on her self healing workshops as well as her writing. And you can find her on Instagram. We'll also put some links for you to follow. But she has a lot of experience discussing self care. She actually is coming out with another book, I believe this August. And so we'll be awaiting that book as well. But she has a popular podcast called The Sugar Jar. And so feel free to follow along there as well. So we're going to get started with the book. So um, this book it goes through the introduction, and my version of the book, I've realized that is kind of different depending on which book you're looking at, but my version of the book has 11 chapters. And I've realized that the 11th chapter is kind of like a bonus chapter. So um but the first introduction features Yasmin explaining what led to her idea for the sugar jar. She was going through a lot of things, which she also explores in chapter one. So we'll get into more details about that. But she was going through a lot of things that really made her stop and reflect. And so she came up with this idea of the sugar in her sugar jar. And so sugar for Yasmine stands for say no, use your voice, give to yourself, give to yourself too. Always check in, check within, and resist the urge to overgive. Um, so, and I think this was your part, so we'll just flip it, Lauren.
Okay.
I think. Sorry. So, in our discussion guide, we also have quotes in each section for folks to remember, or key quotes that we thought stuck out to us in each section of the book or chapter of the book. So, the quote for the introduction is I need to change the locks or something because not everyone needs access to the kitchen. And I'm sure that quote resonates with many folks. I know it resonated with me, like changing the locks because I'm tired. So the discussion questions for this, the first one is, does the sugar jar metaphor resonate with you? Why or why not? So that, Lauren, you can go ahead and answer that question if you would like, or I can start. Or
I think it does resonate with me because I think of it like your energy. It gives a good visual representation of your energy, and you can see you as the jar and your energy as the sugar, and basically seeing how it either fills what fills it up or what brings it down, and how much you need in that jar to essentially just stay fueled and live your everyday life.
sorry, I muted myself. Yeah, so I actually agree. Like it resonated with me. It's something that I never really, I don't know, like growing up, I don't think we put sugar in a jar. It was just sugar packets or in the thing container, and you just, but I get it, right? Like I think my grandmother had sugar in a jar. Actually, it was more like brown sugar in a jar, but which actually resonates more for me, even more. But yeah, so I think the metaphor works because it's this contained thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you know that it can overflow easily, depending on what's happening. And according to Yasmin, depending on what you do and what you allow to happen. So yeah, I it definitely resonates. The second question is, what messages do you think exist around us that prevent us from saying no, using our voice, giving to ourselves, checking within, and overgiving? So going back to her, like the words that align with sugar, what messages do you think don't allow us to or prevent us from actualizing those things?
I would say feeling obligated to say yes, maybe because the person that's asking you to do something, it's a friend or a family member, and you feel obligated to meet this imaginary expectation that they have for you, or feeling like you don't want to let people down. I think that could stop someone or even myself from saying no.
Agreed. Yeah. I think, I think we've been taught, and particularly this book is written by a Black woman. And she has a whole chapter that talks about Black healing and talks about her experience specifically as a Black woman. I think as Black women and because hues speaks to women of color of every hue. As women of color, we're often taught to like just do for others, um and saying no is seen as selfish sometimes or oftentimes. Um and using our voice is seen as it's like reiterating like um this aggressive, right, idea
Mhm.
of black womanhood sometimes, and
Mhm.
giving to ourselves is also seen as selfish.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of taught to just keep giving, even though it might be depleting, what we have to give. And then we're not given space to replenish that what we
Right.
have to give either. So,
I think some people come from a place of giving so much that they don't know what it's like. Like you don't even know you're out of sugar or you're out of energy because you've been operating from this space of like so little for so long.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, I mean, that question is asked because I think it's, I mean, this whole book kind of forces us to like delve into or reflect on who has taught us to behave in a certain way, or who has taught us to like give tremendously without replenishing, without really thinking of ourselves. So, definitely. Okay, so that was the intro, and I'll turn it over to you. I know I did your part, but so chapter one.
Yes, chapter one. Yasmin describes her busy life. She had a new baby, a family, work, and a growing social life. She describes feeling confused by wanting to see the new opportunities and invites as a good thing, but feeling overwhelmed by the decision to attend this. She's invited to something and she feels overwhelmed by the decision to choose to attend. This is the moment when she realized that she was the person filling her jar with things she did not want, not other people. She was giving her energy and time, quote unquote, sugar, to everyone but herself. And when her sugar jar was empty, she felt drained. But feeling drained as was her normal. To navigate through these things, Yasmin explored the sugar jar as the following. So we have intentions, your purpose behind what is done, or your commitments. The jar, your body, soul, mind, vessel. Sugar, your time, energy, attention, money, expertise, education. Lid, your boundaries. Kitchen, your life. Maintenance, caring for leaks, size changes and shifting. Jar filling, self care, and wellness tools. So, our discussion questions are: what kind of jar do you have, and is there anything that you need to change?
My jar is too small. Actually, I think my jar is just the right size, but um, I like put like it's overflowing, and so yeah, so I need to change either the size or the amount of. Actually, I wouldn't even say that. I need to change the kitchen, because she talks about that later, like changing the kitchen, and the kitchen being like uh your life, the place where we like exist in, the
Mhm.
people around us, the environment. And so I think often it's changing that, but also just being more intentional about what is going into the jar. So not the jar itself. I wouldn't change the jar itself. How about you?
Yeah, I wouldn't change the size of my jar. It's just I have I would say a reasonable amount of sugar, but once I'm done giving it to the important things, I'm just down to just a jar. Like it's just a glass. So once I've given all my energy to the things that are necessary for my life or the most important things in my life, Usually I'm focused on putting more sugar in at that point, filling myself back up.
Okay.
And the next discussion question is, how do you feel about Yasmin's statement that your jar is your responsibility?
So one of the quotes, so the quote in the discussion guide that's in there is because that quote resonated with me, and I think it was a personal thing for me. So that quote says, your jar is your responsibility, which means that if people take your sugar without asking, it's because you don't have a lid on your jar. And that acts as you giving them permission to have access to you. I often, like she was doing, blame other people for like taking. Or I also blame other people for not recognizing when I'm exhausted, when I've had too much, and um and learning that it's like my responsibility is like, sis, wake up. It's nobody else's fault but your own. So if you are exhausted, rest. That's your responsibility. It's also, at going back to the question from the introduction, it's also your responsibility to say no. And regardless of what the feelings that come up with that no. But so yeah. So um I mean, it just called me out a little bit. So
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
uncomfortable to read it, but it's true. So
Y- Yeah, I felt called out too because it's nobody's responsibility but your own to make sure you're not overextending yourself. But then you feel guilty sometimes. It's hard to stand up for yourself sometimes. You can feel guilty. You can feel like you're supposed to be meeting people at this level, which is, it doesn't always have to be like that.
yeah, agreed. So basically, Yasmin is calling us all out to remember that it's our responsibility to mind, like what's going on with us, and to uphold boundaries. So
Yeah, she's doing more than calling us
um
out. She's yelling at us. She is.
and I think her next book is a continuation of the Yale. So
Oh
like the one that's coming out in August. So we'll see. Um So chapter two is Black Healing, and that's the subtitle. So in chapter two, she talks about healing as a Black woman. She discusses her experience of being vulnerable in non-Black white spaces and how negative it was. She also demonstrates, like she talks a little bit about like how the book is for everyone, but given her positionality as a Black woman, she has to address her reality. And so, and that is not taking away from the reality that other people have a similar experience. So, but it is not her experience as a Black woman necessarily. So, she discussed in great detail, and she discusses it throughout the book, but being in a wellness space and being asked to not discuss race or really racism, and the discomfort that the person who was leading the space had when she brought up race and racism, and how her experience then was not welcome in that space. And really what I call toxic positivity. Like she talked about this in that space, like there was this idea that in bringing up race and racism, you're somehow counter, like you're going against positivity, and they just wanted to stick to all that was positive. And so she illustrates the importance of creating safe spaces for healing, taking up space, constructive complaining, which I love that phrase. Constructive complaining is like That's like the thing that I always tell people, like, okay, it's great to complain. Maybe not. It's okay to complain, but if your complaint doesn't have some type of solution added to it, then you're wasting your breath. You're wasting your energy because you're just complaining to complain. So, but and then acknowledging our right to heal, being clear about our needs, and moving forward with ease. So, the quote that kind of stuck out for me was when we validate our truth and acknowledge our reality, we're able to make way for new possibilities and advocate for change. We can still experience the magic of manifestation while acknowledging how our path might be different than what others experience. Um, so the discussion questions here are Yasmin discusses the importance of safe spaces. Do you have any safe spaces for your own healing?
I would say the gym when I work out, even though I'm not talking to anybody, I think I'm doing something good for my body, and it's nice to blow off some steam, just like pushing myself to the next level when it comes to exercising. And you accomplish goals when you exercise, so like being able to pick up more weight, things like that. I would say my mother is a safe space. I feel like I can go to her and talk to her, and there won't be a lot of judgment or things like that. So I would say the gym and my mother.
The gym is that's a good one. Your mother is a good one too, like so community and
Yeah.
family. But also now I'm thinking about what she talks about. We'll talk about it the next time for part two of the discussion, but she talks about making sure that the people we go to have the capacity to kind of take on what we're giving, if you will. So, um, but that's a good one. So I've been doing this program with Girl Trek, which is mindful walking. It's an organization of Black women walking across really internationally now. And they do different, like it's a history boot camp, Black history boot camp. And so you're listening and walking at the same time, but it's like you're all walking together, um, even though
Oh,
you're
that's
not
cool.
physically together. And so
Right.
now this one is a mindfulness and walking one, and you walk at the same time. And so everybody's together. And so I feel that is a safe space because it's like I'm healing. You know,
Right.
like
Right.
mindfulness is a healing practice, but it's also walking is a healing practice. Um, and I'm like in nature, so I do it outside um in my neighborhood. And I will also say that my home is a safe space.
Right.
Um yeah, so I feel like I've created a kind of sanctuary, if you will,
Mhm.
and I don't feel judged here. You know, like I feel like, you know, I can be who I need to be in this space. Um, the other thing I would say is, so I'm someone with ADHD, and everybody who knows me hears me talk about this thing called Flow Club, and so I've been doing this Flow Club thing where it's like body doubling, and there are these other people. Well, you get to favorite your like host.
Mhm.
So, and so now each week I like do the Flow Club program with the same host,
Mhm.
and it's usually the same people. And
Mhm.
so it's like we're working or doing whatever. It's people washing dishes, they cooking food, they like doing their hair. You
Uh-huh.
might be doing your work, but
Uh-huh.
you're reaching your goals at the same time in this space. And so that has become a safe space as well for me. So
That's
I do
great.
have some, and I do though wish that some that seemed like a natural, that it would seem like a natural safe space were natural safe spaces. And that's all I'm going to say, because they are not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so, but yeah.
Yeah, that could be kind of a letdown when
Uh,
your home should be your safe space because, you know, that's where you spend a large amount of your time, money, things like that, invest in it. And it's unfortunate when you expect like your home or maybe some relationship to be your safe space and it's not, it kind of lets you down.
yeah, definitely. Yep. Um, so the next question is, are there situations where you were told that your experiences were not welcome because they were not positive? Reflect on that experience.
Mm, I would say definitely within some previous employment, like at certain jobs. I remember when I was in high school, I worked at this place. I'm not gonna say any names, but we were had the opportunity to provide feedback. And if you didn't provide positive feedback or maybe you wanted to initiate change, it was not very welcomed. It was kind of like you were hushed because they didn't, you know, want to change. It was almost like they didn't want to change anything, but it was some type of requirement to do like feedback sessions.
Okay, so basically they were checking a box.
Yep.
They were like just, you know, pretending to be something that they really weren't. So that I don't know. I'm glad you're not working here no more. But
Yeah.
um oh my gosh. This is my life story, okay? Being told that my experiences not necessarily were not welcome, but it was just like in that space, just like her experience, like coming into a space and being told, like, whoa, too much. You're doing too much. Like you said, we don't talk about racism here. We don't talk about sexual harassment here. We don't talk about sexism. We don't talk about ableism. We don't talk about these things here. I think in every position I've ever had in terms of employment, which is why I started my own own space because of this. But I think every position I've ever had, my voice has been silenced, or there was an attempt to
Mm.
silence it. And so I always tell people this. I remember my first day on a job in 2015. We ain't gonna name a job, but people who know me know I started a particular job in 2015. I was caught aggressive from someone who did not even know me. I was getting a parking pass, and they said, "I heard that you were aggressive. You might want to be careful." So I think in all of my employment situations since I was young, like since I started working when I was 14.
Mhm.
Okay, so like even those jobs, like working at the grocery store, if I said something about you're giving this person more hours than me, but I'm like showing up on time, they're not, like they're, like I've always been vocal about inequities and things, and I've always been silenced. And it's not just employment spaces. I've been silenced on social media before because I have a tendency, not so much anymore, but not like I used to, but I have a tendency to just share, my experiences with like physical and mental health issues I might be having or something like that. I've been told like, you know what? Like I've been sent a message, like maybe not share that.
Mm.
And it's not always by white folks.
Mhm.
Sometimes and that's why that question is there, because it's like sometimes we folks of color are like the overseer Unfortunately, I had to use that term, but it's like we're overseeing, like we're the gatekeepers, like you know what I'm saying? Like we're like making sure, whoa now, don't do that. Be respectable, right? Respectability politics and stuff like that. So sharing your experiences in spaces, um, I've often been told not to, but I do it anyway. And it brings certain folks discomfort,
Right.
but they'll be okay. So
They'll be just fine.
they will be. Okay, chapter 3.
Chapter 3. Yasmin discusses belongingness and our urge to fake it until we make it. She explains how performing drains our sugar and can make us feel like we aren't enough. Performing happens when you conform to the world around you, which takes away from your individuality. It can also be harmful because we may push through hard times and pretend we are comfortable when we are not. Being present is a boundary that encourages joy, standing up for yourself, and being yourself. The quote to remember is because there's a difference between you wanting to be there for others and you believing that you must be there for them as someone that you're not in order to maintain the relationship or the beliefs that others have about you. So, the discussion question is the first one is: have you ever felt like you had to perform to feel safe in a situation or even to just be successful? Uh, I would say yes. I feel like any person of color who has a W-2 probably does.
The code switching.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
code switching.
definitely. I think it relates back to that last question that we talked about, like not being able to voice your concerns or show up as yourself or share your experiences. So if you can't share your experiences, if you can't be like, for me, I don't know about you, but for me, to share my experience with someone, that is how I connect to them. Like in order for someone to say that they know me, they for me need to know like my experiences. If I've never been able to share my experiences with you, then I don't think I'm being authentic with you. And it might be because your energy has demonstrated to me that it is not safe to do so
Mhm.
for a variety of reasons. But yeah, so and maybe safe is not the wrong word. I think it is like, like, so being a founder of a nonprofit, being an owner of LLCs, businesses, you're often taught to fake it till you make it. You're often taught to act a certain way because of behaving in that particular way equates to success. And I want to exist in a world where that is not the case. Like, I am trying to curate a world where we can truly be our authentic selves. And and I think sometimes we put pressure on each other to behave in a particular way as well, to perform. And I think sometimes we need to question where where that comes from. Like, who taught us that that was how things had to be in order to be successful. So
Right. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Our
yeah,
next
and I'm thinking about something I told you actually, and we won't go into too much detail, but having to be a particular way to appease other people. And sometimes a conversation just needs to take place. Like, this is just this is my authentic self. And it doesn't mean that I'm not joyful or appreciative. Um, and so when I read this chapter, I was like, it called me to task. Like, You, as much as you push back against people's BS, you sometimes uphold it in certain ways as well. And so, yeah. Yeah.
The next question is, why do you feel we are afraid to present and authentic present ourselves authentically? Um,
To be
oh wait,
present.
present, yes, to be
Yes.
present and authentically ourselves. Okay. Because I think you probably won't be accepted, or people have certain expectations that sometimes you just have to meet to get to other areas of your life that you want to be in. So, um, yeah, sometimes people won't accept it, or they may dig into it and think it's something else that it's not. So, to avoid all that pretending and faking it till you make it maybe easier or more beneficial at the time.
Yeah. I think we exist in a world that is filled with like performers.
Mhm.
We're all just performing for somebody. And I'm thinking of a particular situation in certain organizations, certain like encounters, community spaces. Um, if I said some of the things that I really wanted to say, like what's gonna happen? Nothing. Like they might not like it,
Mhm.
but at least they know your stance on whatever is happening. And I think that is, and I think that's her point. Like a lot of this is like fear that we are holding within ourselves and nobody else is like, that's pressure that nobody else is placing upon us in
Right.
certain spaces. And then in others, yeah, like employment situations, like I know someone who is currently having a hard time right now because uh they chose to be authentically themselves and it wasn't welcome.
Mhm.
They also called out racism and it wasn't welcome.
Mm.
So I think when depending on the situation, sometimes it does have very real consequences that can impact your livelihood.
Yeah.
So um so now chapter 4. Um chapter 4 is also to go back, chapter 3 was presence over performance. That was the name of that chapter. Chapter 4 is how do you feel? And in this chapter, Yasmin talks about vulnerability. It was also discussed how important it is to have people around you who can hold space for you. Like you were talking about your mom, like being the person that you feel is a safe space. Um, and it's important to have people who allow you the space to talk about your feelings and support you the best they can. It can be easy to shut down, not share your feelings, and put others before you so you don't have to deal with your own emotions. Our emotions are our internal guide. Yes. And we must cater to ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves. We must pay attention to our emotions and cut out other people's opinions and negative self talk. So sometimes people who love you can't handle, this is a quote that stuck out. Sometimes people who love you can't handle where you're at emotionally. And those times turn to others who can. And so I think that was the thing that I was bringing up earlier. Like sometimes we need to, like really ask people, do you have the capacity or the energy to take on what I'm giving right now?
Right.
Like, um, so the discussion questions are in our society, feelings get a bad rep. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that's the case?
I think that I would say in like work related scenarios. It could be like your internships, volunteer, or like actual your 9 to 5. I think people like to see you in one mode and one mode only. If you're too emotional or stress how you feel, then you're like this unstable person almost. Or people don't want to have to address the elephant in the room. You become that person like, oh, they're always talking about how they feel about something. They always feel a way about something. Can't you just do it and be quiet? Like that type of attitude. Um, yeah, people don't want to deal with the extras. They don't want to deal with you as a human. They want to deal with you as a worker or whatever category you fall under.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely like not, I feel like that's my experience. Like what I was just talking about, the place that I started in 2015 that we are not going to name at this moment, but it was like a known thing that um kind of, I think I sometimes stopped being invited to meetings and things like that because I was known as a person who would ask questions that they weren't ready to answer. And I think part of the problem is like it brings discomfort for some folks. But that's a look, here's my coffee cup. I don't know if it can be seen, but it says sounds like a you problem. Because it is. So, like, yeah, it was a you problem. That's a you problem and not a me problem. Like, if you can't handle, like it's like in certain things, certain spaces, you hired me for a reason. You asked me to be a member for a reason. You asked me to be on a board for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Like, but also this also happens in friend groups too. And it's like if to me, true friendship is like, well, like this person, me as a friend, that this is who I am and this is how I show up. So, but I've often been told, like, like there is this, like your feelings are not welcome here, basically. So, um, and that's been in personal situations too. Like you're in your feelings, you in your emotions,
Whew.
and I think, and I think the this particular chapter resonated the most with me at this moment in my life, at this moment that I'm sitting in right now, because it's like, yes, I'm in my feelings and in my emotions, and rightfully so. Like, rightfully so. And I think what she did for me was demonstrate, and she said, there is wisdom in our feelings. And we often forget, we think wisdom is in some book, right? Or in some research or out there. And there's wisdom in our experiences and how we feel associated with those experiences. So it really contextualized, like, and it supported my view. I wanted to send that whole thing to to somebody, to
Mm.
like, I need you to read this chapter. Thanks. Have a great day. So like, but yeah. Um the next question is, how do you discern between intuition and fear?
Hmm. I feel like intuition is calm. It's almost like a whisper, and it's like everything feels right when your intuition is telling you something. It's like everything points towards that. Fear, I feel as if fear is loud, past, fast, tell you no, 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 or you can't do it, you can't do it. It uses a lot of can't, like your inability to do something, where your intuition is more like this is unsafe, or this is safe, or go for it. fear is more like can't, won't, not good enough. So that's how I discern from
Okay.
those two voices in my head.
Yeah. I'm looking up some of the because she talks about discerning between the two, and I was trying to look up um some of the ways that she talked about like the differences. So she says in this chapter, fear might sound like I shouldn't be doing this, even though I want to, because what if something happens? What if someone finds out? What if? Intuition might sound like I can feel that I don't want to do this. It doesn't mean that this commitment is wrong. It's just not for me. And that's different than what if this thing happens if I go. Right?
Right.
Like that is fear, like worry associated with it. And that that explained it to me, right? Because I don't, so it tells me a lot of times that what I'm feeling is my intuition. And maybe I'm fearful of the results of like following my intuition as opposed to fear being the thing that, like fear is not my intuition, but I'm fearful of the consequence of following my intuition.
Right.
So she also says intuition always feels more concrete and certain than fear, even when our fear feels real. So that's what you were kind of saying. Like, it's like, this, it's like you just know
You just
kind
know,
of
yeah.
like what's happening. So, I know for me, like, um, it's like I feel I seldom say things like I seldom feel like I seldom use I guess like the I shouldn't be doing this as the reason for me not doing something. And so because I think I'm at a point in my life where it's like if I want to do it, I'm gonna do it. Like I want to do it, but sometimes I do get a thing um like everybody else is doing this thing
Mm,
or
yeah.
everybody else is going here or and it's like and I just want to sit at home and
Yep.
chill or I want to do something else, you know, and it's like peer pressure, but there is no peer pressuring you. It's your peer, like that's the thing. You're the one who's pressuring yourself.
Mhm.
And I think this chapter for me, like it resonated in like getting me to like be real with myself. Like you don't have to do what everybody else is doing, sis. Like do you. You don't have to go like on a real level. Like you don't have to go to the bar.
You don't have
You
to go
don't
to
gotta
that
go to that
party.
ball.
Yeah.
You don't gotta right. You don't gotta go to that ball, to that party. You can work on the things that you know will help you actualize your goals. Or you can rest. Because that will also
That would
help
also be
you
nice.
actualize your goals, right? So and I think we have an internal like peer pressure. Like it's like like somebody, but it's like internal. Like nobody
Yeah.
said it was a problem with you not going. We'll miss you, but nobody said like you had to go. So, but I think we do that all the time.
Yeah.
And then we pay for it later.
Yeah. In your
So,
bed, kicking yourself like, why did I do that?
yep, yep, yeah. Um, Okay.
We have chapter 5.
Yep. So we are ending our discussion with chapter 5,
Okay.
and we'll pick back up on with chapter 6 on the
May
23rd. So
23rd.
I know the
Yes.
flyer says the 22nd, but we are doing the 23rd, and we will update the flyer and place it on social media and on our website for folks to follow. But it will be the 23rd at 6 p.m. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Chapter 5.
Okay. Boundaries and barriers is the name of that chapter. So, boundaries and barriers were discussed in this chapter. Boundaries are essential to the healing process and ensure that we do not put ourselves last. That's very important. Setting boundaries also allows us to communicate our needs, and we can change our boundaries at any point to fit our needs. Boundaries allow us to help others without compromising ourselves. When setting boundaries, you may lose some people that are in your life due to them not willing to respect your boundaries. Setting a boundary does not mean setting a barrier. We do not want to prevent ourselves from accessing help or safe/good experiences. Realizing your boundaries can help you dig deep to uncover your fears. Boundaries may be scary to put in place, but they ensure that we are enjoying our relationships. I think that some people get lost in that. Like you should be enjoying your relationships. It shouldn't be taxing or strenuous, and you are going to go through things in certain relationships, and but you'll overcome them. But you need to still be enjoying your relationship, and boundaries help with that. The quote to remember is the same quote: "I need to change the locks or something because not everyone needs access to this kitchen." The discussion question, the first one is, why do you believe boundaries cause discomfort? I think that boundaries can cause discomfort. Um, Even if it's with a good person, like somebody who's going to be okay with your boundaries, this can still cause discomfort at first. Like if you're used to talking on the phone to your best friend till 10 o'clock at night, but now you're in school, maybe you have a family, you have all these different things. It could be anything. So you don't need to explain why you're doing your boundary. It could be anything. And you're like, okay, I need to cut off communication at 8 p.m. And this is your best friend who you're used to talking to every night at 9, 10 o'clock at night. You might have to tell your friend, hey, I can't talk until 8. And they may get in their feelings a little bit and be like, dang, I'm going to be no more pillow talking with my bestie. Like, oh my gosh, they might be upset about that. But then they'll be fine with it because they're your best friend. And if it makes a better you to cut off communication at 8, they will see that and be like, wow, my friend is better now. And they'll be rooting for you.
I agree. I feel like boundaries cause discomfort for other for so it's both ways, right? So boundaries cause discomfort for the person putting up the boundary because we're so used to just letting people in and not having that boundary. And then I think boundaries cause discomfort for the other person because they're used to being let in,
Mhm.
right? Or they're used to being in spaces where, like they can say whatever they want. They using your example, they can call whenever they want, right?
Mhm.
Like just we just sit on our phone like forever.
Right.
One of the complaints that I get from so many people is, why am I on do not disturb? Why do you have do not disturb on all the time?
It is
I
good for you though. It could be good for
It
you
is
though.
wonderful for me. Yes,
Yeah.
like
Because next thing you know, you like this
I
when you're supposed to be doing something else.
now I'm gonna tell you. Now I leave my phone upstairs.
Really?
If I like during the workday, like yesterday, I left it upstairs for like the majority of the day. And
Is there a
at
clap
night,
button?
I've been cutting it off, period.
What? Is there a clap button?
But my thing is like, that is my boundary. That is my boundary. I don't, unless you done, okay? There is nothing that I feel like needs to be, like, for example, at 10 o'clock at night, nothing we need to discuss past 8. Nothing we need to discuss. But also, if I am going through something, and like one of the ways that I work through things sometimes, and I'm realizing as I grow older, is I retreat within myself, and I'm cool with that. I watch movies, I eat what I want, like I chill
Do what you
out, and yes, and I don't want to be bothered. And really, that is the wrong phrase. That's not the way that it's not that other people bother me. It's just there's nothing I need to say right now. It's nothing I can say right now. And saying anything to you in this moment that I'm working through my stuff is inauthentic.
Yeah, or it may not even be the best thing you want to say. Like if you give me time, I
Yeah.
could come back with something better because I may say something I don't mean, not even something offensive, but I really may say something I don't mean. And then when we talk next week and I'm in a better space and I'm acting like, my regular self, it's like, "Oh no, that wasn't." Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So
And
yeah.
then you're upset because I didn't say something, or you confused because I said something you didn't understand, not knowing that I was working through whatever I was working through. So I've learned that, like, as I get older, I just kind of retreat within myself, and that is my boundary. The phone, I also don't like, if people who know me know I don't like loud sounds, so my ringer is never on anyway. So you could, if it wasn't on Do Not Disturb, you still wasn't gonna get through.
It was gonna be on silent.
It literally is
I
on
understand.
silent. It has been on silent since 2007.
Oh my gosh.
Since I
Wow.
got I had the same phone number. So
That is
I
a
do not
long
like
time.
sounds. Yes. I don't like it.
I
I don't
understand.
like being alerted. Yeah. I hate when the email thing goes off.
Oof, that
Please.
is. Or you can when you're already like going through it work wise, and you just see pew the little message pop, and you're like, that might push
Mhm.
me over the edge. I
It
understand.
does. Yes. And I know we're like, right, like these are like, it seems like very small things, but I have people who don't understand, and I wish they were all watching. Like, they don't understand why I do that. And I do it though, because like I just, like that is my boundary. And that is how I'm able to heal,
And you're
is
standing on it.
retreating within. And then I pop out like, y'all miss me? Okay. So
The next question is, have you been on the other end of boundary setting? For example, has anyone ever put up a boundary and enforced it on you? And then what was that like?
I can go.
Yes. Go ahead.
You want me to go? Okay.
Or I
So
can
I
go ahead,
brought
go ahead.
that other thing up earlier, that quote from the last chapter. Sometimes people who love you can't handle where you're at emotionally, and those times turn to others who can.
Mhm.
That, like, that aligns with this chapter and that question. So I can recall having like a very difficult emotional experience, and you know um like my friends being around, and then after that experience, one of my friends like not talking to me anymore, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, I'm cool now, like, what's going on?
Mhm.
Like, but the reality is that that person wasn't in the space in that moment to deal with my emotional state.
Mhm.
And part of it is like what we're talking about, it was their responsibility to say, like, you don't know, I can't show up. Like, y'all got her, I'm good because I don't have the capacity. But
Mhm.
also, it's also up to me to understand that not everybody is able to take on what you're giving,
Yeah.
right? And so I've learned to, and I don't do it as often as I would like to do it, but I have learned to ask, like, like, are you in a space where I can tell you what's going on? Like, can I tell you how I'm feeling right now? Because I'm about to go off on somebody, right? Even if it's
Mhm.
not like a deep emotional thing, but and so it's just like realizing and recognizing that not everybody has to listen to you. Not
Yeah.
everybody has to be there for you. They don't
Yeah.
have to. And that doesn't mean that they care about you any less. But everybody is dealing with their own, especially when your circle is filled with women of color, especially when your circle is filled with Black folks who are dealing with their own BS every single day. Often you sharing what you're going through is adding to, right? It's like secondary trauma. It's like you're adding to the trauma they're already experiencing, and they're unable to say, no, I can't deal with it right now because of what we've been talking about. We've been taught to just come on, bring it on. Tell me I'm here, right? And really, for our own sanity, we shouldn't be here. We should say, like, I need some space. Like, no, I don't have a capacity. I love you, and I hope that you like do what is needed to make it through the situation that you're going through. But I can't right now. That's a hard
Yeah.
thing to do.
It is a hard thing to do. I remember this is this is about 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, maybe. I remember I used to could just call you, not at any like obnoxious time, but like call you and ask you for something or just talk to you about something I'm thinking in my head, and we could just like talk. Like we would talk in that moment. And this is like related to like school and work and then things like that. So I remember I was calling you to set up for the internship, and I could just call and then you'll be like, "Yeah, like an hour in a day, I'll send it. I'll do whatever it is." I called one day and you're like, "Lauren, I can't just like do that anymore. Like I know I could like talk to you and then I would do it like in a day or 2 days or an hour, whatever I said I would." I have a calendar now. So when we talk about things related to your internship, you need to schedule an appointment. I was like, "That's fine. Actually, that's even better because now I have a documented time that I'm supposed to meet with you. It's perfect." And I was just also shocked, like, wow, you're really on a schedule. Like, that's so crazy. Like, I'm so happy for you. And now I can schedule times to talk to you, which is fine. That's fine with me because now I have a set time. So, yeah, I was really proud of you for that.
Well, that's dope that like that you were like excited that I actually did that because I've had the other situation, like being honest, like family members, like I called you and I'm trying to take care of this thing right now. And it's like, what time is it? Is it before 5? If it's before 5, I'm working. You work? That's another thing. I'm trying to run a nonprofit. Yeah, I work. Like, what? Or even if it's like at 6, I got sorority meeting. I'm on a board. I got this board meeting. I'm on an advisory council. I got this advisory council. I'm not just like sitting. So, I think before I didn't have boundaries. Honestly, I didn't have good boundaries at all. Like, and now I'm like, even now, if people put something on a schedule, like I did this week, like, please reschedule. Because I knew my capacity.
Mhm.
And I had to uphold that, right? Like, in order to show up the way that I need to show up for you. And in order for me, and not just you, right? Like for other people too. Like if I'm going to show up properly, I need space and time to do that. But I also need to be honest with myself and know when I could do that. Like when I'm not gonna show up properly. So,
Mhm.
right, like so, but I think that goes back to being taught, like you just, like when this is business, right? This is
Mhm.
business right here. So when you call me, other people call me like family and stuff like that, that ain't business. And so when it comes, like when you want to discuss business, then we could discuss business. If
Mhm.
you calling me after 6, but technically for you, that's still business because those are your hours, right?
Mhm.
So, but like if you call me on a weekend, that's different. It's still gonna be on do not disturb, but
You won't have to get on the calendar probably.
yeah, but you don't have to get on a calendar. So that's the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is actually my saving grace. It is keeping me sane. Like put it on my calendar. Have you scheduled an appointment? Like and I think for us, like some people feel like that's like who she think she is. I'm just trying to keep my calendar aligned. I don't know what you're talking about. So I think, yeah, some people like we've been taught, like, I think as much as we've been taught not to have a boundary, other people have, like placed that upon us too. Like, what you mean, like, you're not available? And so, yeah, and now I'll be like, but it takes, sometimes it's hard, like in personal relationships, it's the same thing. Like, people don't have to text you back, people don't have to answer the phone for you. That you paying their bill, even if you paying their bill, they don't have to text you back. You don't own them. But I think
Uh-huh.
we've been taught, that's what we've been taught. Like, if you care about me, why you not calling back? Right? Like, if you care about me, why you not doing X, Y, and Z? Why you not helping me? And that this is something that I've had to grapple with, like personally, as someone who navigates illness too, like being sick sometimes and having to go, and I might be in a hospital, and I would get upset sometimes if people are not there. Why they ain't here? And it's like that also requires somebody's energy and capacity, and maybe they had a prior experience in a hospital that makes them not want to like go to the hospital. Maybe, like maybe they just don't have a capacity. Maybe they, like a text is all they could do, if that. But it's difficult to actually acknowledge and um acknowledge and abide by people's boundaries sometimes, but it's
Yeah.
necessary.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we've gotten to chapter 5. We went over time a bit. We did start a little late though. So, but thank you to those who have popped in, popped off, popped in, popped off. We will continue part 2 of our conversation next Thursday, not next Wednesday, but next Thursday, May 23rd, at 6 p.m. And we will also be broadcasting still on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Next week, you'll be able to download, actually, tomorrow, you'll be able to download the discussion guide and follow along. Again, there are songs for each chapter, different treats for each chapter to go along with them. And so we thank you for joining us. Again, I'm Dr. Nicole Carter, the Executive Director of HUES Women's Health Advocacy Institute, struggling with a sinus infection today. And
I'm Lauren Polk, the health
Our health.
equity intern.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Bye.